It's my great pleasure to welcome to the stage Kevin Murphy, but also Reece Preston from iTICKET, Anjelica Devoe, what a name, you should be a movie star, Anjelica, from Ticketmaster, James McGlinn from EventFinda, that's a cool name too, James, and James again.
Very impressive to see everyone here at this time of the day, and of course having ticketing as a topical event issue, I think fair enough, you're all here. Just to follow on from Matt's discussion, I know a few of you in the room, and we've mentioned it on the first day of the council event sort of catch-up, that where fresh info might fit into that discussion. We believe that they will coexist. We've got one piece of work with fresh info that happens around the country with individual events, and that'll continue. And with the with Matt's EY work, it'll be more of a countrywide. And when it gets down to what the economic value is, I think many of you in the room will know that you've got the economic the cost-benefit analysis model that Shane does at Fresh Info. And we're yet to work through the modelling that we've got with Matt and EY. So they will coexist, if anyone was thinking that. So ticketing, a really, really interesting period post-COVID. Firstly, just maybe go around the room, down the line of who we've got actually on the stage.
Kia ora koutou, my name is Reece Preston. I'm the Managing Director of iTICKET, based here in sunny Auckland. And Kevin said we can only tell where we're from and our name. That's it.
They listen.
Talofa lava, my name is Anjelica Devoe. I'm the General Manager for Ticketmaster New Zealand.
Yeah, kia ora koutou, James McGlinn, CEO of EventFinda.
Kia ora koutou, James McKee, General Manager of Ticketek New Zealand.
Excellent. So a really good mix, and a lot of you will deal with these people, or more than one of them, I'm sure. So we're just going to start. We've got a list of questions. We'll get through as much of the list as we can. But firstly, just first impressions from a high level, you know, what is ticketing doing in your area post-COVID? What are the impressions out there in the market at the moment? And then we'll dive into individual.
From our perspective at iTICKET, this year has been really good. I think the potentially sales are down a little bit across individual events, but the industry feels like it's on the rise. Compared to 2022, post-COVID, and we don't even like to really refer too much back to those bad old days, but 2022 was sort of a bit up and down. It was sort of, you know, bunny hopping down the road a little bit, but this year feels really solid. So we're just sort of making the most of that and helping out promoters do the best they can.
Anjelica?
Yeah, similar, I guess, sentiment to Reece. I don't think, you know, anyone in this room is under the illusion that, you know, everyone's feeling the pinch around ticket sales at the moment. Jane Patterson spoke a little bit to it yesterday, just with that late buying behaviour, 500,000 tickets sold for the Women's World Cup in, you know, the final 30 days. But we've also seen some incredible sold-out shows delivered this year. Ed Sheeran, Elton John in Christchurch, Harry Styles, and we've seen some incredible demand for the summer coming. You know, 3 shows for Pink, Foo Fighters. We've got The Weekend at Eden Park just announced yesterday. So the pipeline is strong.
Excellent.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I'd also say, you know, to begin with, I think those bigger events, we had the pent-up demand and people just wanted to get out there and buy those tickets, but maybe, you know, certainly from EventFinda's perspective, we have this very wide view of the industry, and a lot of those smaller events were still struggling. That's only just sort of come back now, so that post-COVID hangover probably lasted about a year. There was also that pent-up demand for the OEs, and so lots of the younger staff were heading off overseas. And so, you know, we're only just sort of at that point now, I think, where new people have got their feet under the table within both our organisation and the clients that we work with, getting the hang of things and kind of feeling like, okay, we're ready to go at full steam again.
Second, James.
Yeah, from a Ticketek perspective, I think, I'm not so like Reece said, I'm not so much of a fan of the post-COVID thing. I think, you know, that's well and truly in our rearview mirror now. And I think one of the interesting things for us is You think about things like the floods that impacted Auckland over the summer period, and what it sort of proved is there are only some things that you can plan for and some things that you can't. But from a Ticketek perspective, what we're trying to do is get ahead of all of those things and make sure that we're ready for whatever it is that comes down the pipe. So we're a 40% bigger organisation than we were a year ago. We've got new staff in IT, hardware, customer service, account service, all of those different things. And like Anjelica says, the pipeline's really strong. And outside of the concert stuff, there's some fantastic sporting events coming down the pipe with more female sport in the form of WXV coming, and some further exciting competitions coming down the pipeline. So from our perspective, we're really ready and prepared for whatever it throws at us. And in the last week, obviously finally no COVID restrictions at all left, is a reminder that actually this thing's done and dusted, and it's time for us all to get excited about the future.
Excellent. So what about the issues? What are the things at the moment that are front of mind, as a buyer, promoter, but you as the ticketing service providing those services? Do you want to drill down into some of the things that are front of mind, some of those challenges maybe?
Pricing and inflation jumps out, right? Like the cost of delivering events has gone up, the cost of all the staff that work on those events, that puts pressure on margins, ticket prices go up, fees go up. How do you address that, and how do you communicate that in a way that articulates the value? And that's a real challenge right now with affordability the way it is.
Others similar?
Similar probably, and it's sort of going on from that, people are buying tickets, but with the cost of everything going up, petrol, tickets, broccoli, everything, you can't escape it. People might not be buying as many tickets potentially, but they are still buying tickets. And if I go back many years to previous recessions, events and therefore ticketing does quite well generally during economic recessions, because people want to feel good about life. They go to a show, they go to a game, they want to get out of the house. They might not go on holiday or buy a new car or a fridge, but they do tend to want to get out and have live experiences. So I think that's potentially what we're seeing as well.
Yep. Anything to add?
I think sort of from our perspective, obviously, including all of those things, but one of the really interesting ones, and has just been touched upon here by the good people at EY, is data is just so hugely important for all of us. And it's not just the value of it and what it provides to us from an insights and analytics point of view, but it's the risks around it as well. Right, and from a venues and promoters perspective, the rights and privacy of that data is just so hugely important, and the integrity of that is just such a massively important part of being able to provide that value and insight. And so probably I'd say that one of the bits that we're just really conscious of constantly and in communication with the whole way through is just making sure that that data is treated with the respect it deserves, and that we're making sure that we're delivering those insights that we deliver from our insights team, but also making sure that our venues and partners and promoters are treating it with the respect that it deserves, because it's a huge risk to all of us if it goes the wrong way.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, the only thing I'd probably add to that is we are noticing that fans are buying their tickets a lot closer to the event actually happening as well. So I think a bit of work for us to do in terms of building back that consumer confidence to buy early, whether that's ensuring that fans have options. I think through COVID, fans came to expect that they would be able to get a refund if they couldn't make it. As James mentioned, obviously restrictions dropped last week. How is that now affecting your COVID refund policy? Do fans have options to resell their ticket? Can they transfer it to someone else if they can't make it?
Yeah. So that buyer behaviour in New Zealand, I mean, we talked yesterday, the FIFA, the late sort of ticket sales that got us over the line and through the targets. But buyer behaviour in New Zealand, I mean, with trends that you see, around the world and with other partners, has anything changed? Are we likely to continue to see that trend of late buying? What's the general feeling that you think?
If we'd had this conversation in 2019, we would, comparing New Zealand to everywhere else in the world, we would have said Kiwis just buy their tickets so late, and we're all tearing our hair out because we're looking at the forecasts and the projections and thinking, are we going to get to the point we need to get to? And then COVID comes along, and people are buying later and later and later. So, it's just exacerbated a problem that was already there. And, it's things like being able to provide the confidence of enhanced refund rights or ticket protection. If anything goes wrong, they can get a refund. So, buy up front. Pricing as well. Making sure that we're doing the early birds and the general on sales. Making sure that we're pricing the gate higher so that we can encourage people to buy up front and avoid some of that operational demand of the on-the-day experience as well.
Yeah, so that early bird discussion, I know that we had a brief conversation on it, but everyone still feels that there's a role to play to try and get people to buy early, but yeah, certainly a challenge. But any comments around that early bird process?
I think you've got to dangle that carrot pretty much, and things like, post-COVID now we've got weather conditions, so every other day there's a storm or a cyclone.
Yeah.
So being able to, dangle that carrot in front of the customer and get them to buy a ticket early has to be a good thing. I think it was Sarah who was mentioning in the marketing session yesterday, there's a bunch of customers who always buy early, they love the event, they want to go, they're going to buy their tickets as soon as it's on sale. There's the middle bunch that are always going to just sort of buy in the middle, and then there's all those last minute purchases, and they're getting probably crunched even closer to the day of, to the point where we're seeing probably people at the gate buying tickets online, half an hour before they go in or 20 minutes before they go in. So I think that the time frames are just cramming together a bit more.
As an event owner, it really does do your head in from looking at your budgets and wondering if you're actually going to get to the line of covering your costs. So I mean, it is a challenge, isn't it?
It is, and it's one of those sort of trust the process kind of scenarios. You don't want to have to trust the process that the people are going to turn up on the gate and buy those tickets or in the days prior, but they tend to, and it's probably a big Auckland thing as well with people buying last minute. But going back to the early bird scenario, I think that's not a bad
Still
idea.
relevant. Yeah.
Well, I think that's sort of you've got Reece talks a bit about dangling the carrot, but at the other end of the carrot's the stick, right? And and James sort of mentioned getting those gate prices up, but we heard a lot yesterday about the success of FIFA. 700,000 tickets, 0 tickets bought at the gate, right? They didn't have a gate.
No.
So everything was entirely digital. So I suppose I'd encourage all of the venues and promoters out there to have a bit of a think about that and what that did for A, FIFA's data, B, their ticketing security and integrity, and C, their labour costs, and have a think about actually what's happening in your venue and how your ticketing partner can provide that digital service for you, because it's a really important step change for us all to go through. And FIFA proved that it's well and truly not only possible, but very much happens.
Yeah, for sure. And I suppose rolls on to, like traditionally there's always a percentage of people that want to go into the box office, but that is still shrinking away. Is that what you're seeing?
Absolutely. I mean, there's that. I mean, the squeaky wheel and all of that. But it's such a minute percentage now, and often we're finding that actually. We talk about post-COVID, but we all managed to work out how to use a QR code, right? And actually, this is no different.
Yeah.
You sign up, you do all of those things, and so actually, the process is really simple, and the value and integrity it provides is so much more value to both the venue and the promoter and the event overall.
Yeah, I agree with James on that. The absolute ideal outcome is that you have no ticket sales on the day. You don't have to have a box office. You're dealing with cash. No one's going to pick that up, and you don't have the staffing labour demands. It is a balancing act, right? And especially for some of the venues, how are you catering to a community that has accessibility requirements or isn't able to afford the technology to purchase online and digitally? And we do need to find ways to resolve those issues. But certainly, in an ideal world, you're not selling tickets at the gate.
What about the reseller platforms? I know we've touched on that. It was a fairly hot topic the last few years. It's still sort of out there, but any comments on the reselling process, the reselling platform?
Yeah, I think the secondary market is absolutely still a threat. It's a problem, and it's a collective problem that we face as an industry. And it's, I think, something that we have to collectively work together on. We've got an obligation to educate our fans, to ensure that they know the right places to buy a ticket, how to resell their ticket legitimately, how to transfer it. We've recently launched our integrated resale platform that allows fans to do that really simple through their own Ticketmaster account. And again, just going back to, I think, providing fans with the confidence to buy early, knowing that, again, they've got those options down the track if they can't make an event.
think the key that you said is legitimate reselling platforms. I think we've probably all got facilities within our own platforms to share or pass tickets on properly. And have those tickets be valid and validated properly at gates. There's still too many people who end up, unfortunately, buying tickets on Viagogo, and we've talked about this a bit, and still an issue. Commerce Commission in New Zealand has taken them to court. As an interesting side note, I was supposed to appear in court for 20 minutes, I was told, just to give a bit of background, and ended up in court all day testifying against Viagogo as if I was the criminal as a ticketing company here in New Zealand, which is absolutely ridiculous. So that's been dragging on for 6 months now with still no outcome. And so many of the things that Viagogo does is just straight out fraud, simple as that. So we do have to think about how tickets get resold properly and do our bit to assist customers to do that, because things change, and especially as we've learned through COVID, gone are the days of just going, no, there are no refunds, you can't change it, you can't do this, you can't do that. If you say those things, then tickets end up where they shouldn't be. So that's finding that nice middle ground to allow that to happen safely.
I think you're right. I think the other bit that I'd sort of add to that is obviously the legitimate resale market is hugely important for people if things change, but providing that technology and systems in the upfront on-sale model so that actually there aren't bad actors going into the front end of it as well. So there's a whole range of different systems and security that Ticketek are providing as part of our on-sale program to ensure that there aren't those bad actors involved in that. And you think about some of the big on-sales, it is absurd the amount of bots that get deployed against whatever it happened to be at whichever regional theatre. It's at real scale, and it's the systems that we deploy up front that probably no one sees, that actually means that, that down the track, there aren't hundreds of tickets available to go on Viagogo because they were never able to be purchased in the first place. But actually what we then see is that there are legitimate reasons or requirements for a secondary market for people whose plans do change, or I broke my leg, or whatever it happens to be, and providing those services, and absolutely it's a really important part of what we do.
So I think the messaging around like event owners when they're going on sale is to make it very clear about where you go to buy your tickets and make sure that we can educate as much as we can, so that Viagogo just starts to get to the back of the queue. And
you block them early, precisely what James has just said. You don't let them have the tickets in the first place. All of this tech that we have to do to block them at the very first point. They don't get the tickets in the first place, they don't end up there, they then don't spend the money in Google AdWords to get customers who are searching for XYZ show or game or whatever. They're not there in the first place.
So we've had quite a bit of feedback around pre-sales and asking like, what's the timing? What's the perfect timing of a pre-sale? Whether pricing can be more dynamic like we see with other industries. Any comments on that, just from timing? There's certainly a few people asking those sort of questions.
There's no magic bullet or answer for that question. I mean, we see events where they go and sell 9 months ahead of time and sell out within 3 hours. But that's because it's a specific event, it's popular, people want that particular ticket. Other events are on sale 2 weeks beforehand, which is probably not enough time. I think the average is probably 4 to 6 weeks in our world. But it depends.
It also plays into the conversation that we're having about data. So, one of the things that we've done pretty much all the way through with EventFinda is provided APIs and other tools so that the organisers and the venues can access that data in real time about buying behaviour and at what price people are buying. And so what we're starting to see now is people plugging in third-party tools into that process through Zapier and Make and other systems like that to be able to, in real time, actually affect change in the pricing. And I think we're going to see that increasingly more and more as part of ticketing as part of a digital ecosystem where that data is moving around and it's not impeded and allows those sort of additional third-party tools to be plugged in.
And so in the process of buying, the pay now, buy now, pay later, do you all offer that now? Is this just a thing that is going to be here now, so you offer?
I think there's definitely been more of a tendency towards it over the last 12 months, and I think current economic climate has an effect on that. Traditionally, we used to see sort of 10 to 12% 2 years ago, and in some cases now we're seeing upwards of 25 to 30% on an event. Also very demographic dependent, but just like fans are looking for that confidence to buy early in the options, if they can't make an event, they're also looking at options and ways to pay.
And of course, when you get to the point of the event day, if those plans are not paid up, they don't get their ticket, obviously.
Oh, they do.
They do?
Yeah. They get their ticket at the time of purchase. There's a payment plan created, either with our systems or with third-party systems that plug in, the afterpays and lay-bys and that sort of thing. But I think there's a bit of a balancing act here, and that we have a responsibility within the industry and organisers, especially in setting pricing. Are you, if you're seeing, and we have certainly seen some events that are 25, 30%. We've seen some that are 40+% buy now, pay later, and especially with certain types of tickets. And I think, there is a responsibility to ask yourselves, am I pricing this appropriately, and can people really afford this? And if they're putting it on buy now, pay later in such huge volumes, are we doing a service to the industry and society in general? It's a question for you.
Yeah, I mean, I'd sort of not challenge that, I suppose, but from our perspective, our responsibility is to provide tickets for people, right? And if we're following, if the society's saying, look, buy now, pay later is a great thing for people that have the facilities to be able to use it, then let's support it, right? And I think, from our perspective, if there are people that that use it as part of their ongoing finances, and lots of people do, then great. We're really happy to support it, and they're really important partners to us. And we're happy to make sure that those facilities are available if and when people need to use them. And those responsibilities lie with the payment merchants, just like they do with a credit card, right? Which is 22%, and which is 90+% of our sales, and is running at 22% for the 99% of people that don't pay it off monthly. So I think we need to be a bit careful about singling out buy now, pay later as as bad actors within the system.
Yeah, just to clarify, I wouldn't say they're bad actors, but I think that industry is coming under increasing scrutiny, and I think it's just something we need to be careful of.
So one of the topics that has come up over the years, and from a promoter or an event manager talking to venues, some venues still have exclusive deals. A lot of discussion around the pros and cons. Like, where does that sit with people now? What's the general feeling on that exclusive deal with venues?
I think
throw us the comments.
I think there's a mood of promoters or event owners who are hiring venues to have a bit more flexibility these days. And it hasn't been the case for a long time. It's all good and well if you're the ticketing company who has the ticketing contract, but it doesn't necessarily serve the promoter or the customers, for that matter, in terms of the right kinds of features or the people that you're working with, or relationships and connections you have with your suppliers, essentially. So it doesn't need to be a free-for-all. I mean, there are a lot of ticketing companies that pop up that probably don't all need to be in the mix for a variety of reasons. But I think having a little bit more open and some flex in there with some boundaries would be a good idea. That would be my comment.
I think venues continue to choose the exclusive venue model because it creates a revenue stream for their business.
Yeah.
It enables them to, have a bit more consistency around financial planning, budgeting, whether that's going into the upkeep of the venue, staffing, marketing. I think it's becoming increasingly more important for the venues and the ticketing partner to work more collaboratively together. Yes, there are the benefits such as streamlined venue operations, consistency for fans, but when you're working in that collaborative, I think, sense together, it also allows you to then help your venue partners achieve their strategic objectives as well.
Yeah, 100%. I'll sit on the fence here a little bit and agree with both of you. There are huge advantages to the venues in having a partner that they can work very closely with. They understand the systems, and the people have, on both sides, a really, really good understanding of what's required to deliver great events. At the same time, for EventFinda, we're very happy to work in an environment where it's more flexible and there are multiple options at a given venue. So, I would agree with Reece, though. It's not like we're saying, hey, work with anyone, but only one of us. It is really important that there are standards and a free-for-all. As we've seen over the past years, not all ticketing companies operate the same way. And it is really important that there are safeguards in place, and the venue model as it stands provides some of those.
I think probably the two things I'd add to that, particularly around the benefits of the exclusive model, providing a single customer view. Again, going back to the data, that's such a huge part of the analysis, and being able to show value to your stakeholders. And I know there's lots of venues out here who you talk about fresh info earlier, and all of the value that we need to provide back to major events or councils or whoever it may be, and be able to provide a single value of your customer is just hugely important. And having an exclusive ticketing provider who actually provides data and analysis around that just provides value that's really hard to actually put a dollar to, because it really gives you insights into who's attending. And then I think that the second part of that is just making sure that actually relationships are really important, and having the ability to be able to call someone at any given point in time and say, this is happening, we can fix it, and those relationships are a hugely important part of the way that we do business, whether that's with a venue or a promoter or whoever, and having that relationship at a really strong level is hugely important to the way that all of us operate as people. So that's those would be the two bits I'd add.
And just one other thing on that, as hirers of venues, you're not powerless. These venues run through a process every few years, and they do a lot of analysis, and they'll select who their ticketing company is going to be for the next period. Talk to them. If you've got a ticketing company that you really find you're much more productive working with, they really understand your needs, all that sort of thing, talk to the venue. Tell them, let them know, because they take that into consideration in a big way in these processes.
It's good advice. So what about the future? What are you seeing overseas? Is there any technology, facial recognition? Is there anything that we need to be prepared for, or that you think will probably happen, in the near future?
I think there's probably what we've sort of touched on a little bit is the move towards less box office, going cashless. I've just come back from Australia last week, just saw a few shows and things. There's just no cash. Everything's PayWave. None of it's FPOS. There was an article last week about FPOS network in New Zealand, old school FPOS, on the sort of down and out, which creates some opportunities to kind of streamline things and get rid of the more difficult parts of providing a platform. AI is an interesting one. You don't just put AI in just for the sake of it. There's got to be a good reason for it. But things like data are really, really hard to dig into and find meaningful information from it. I think AI is going to play a big part of that, being able to have AI trained on ticketing data, and then have promoters and venues be able to just literally ask questions in plain English of that data and get a response. So, things like, please tell me the top 10 customers who spent at least $500 in the last 6 months that went to a theatre show within 100 kilometres of my venue. Bang, there's the answer, kind of thing. Yeah. So I think more of that is potentially on the way.
Yeah, cool. Any other thoughts before we wind up? We've got a couple of minutes.
I think the other bit I'd probably add on to the AI piece around data is, and it's starting to get a bit jargony, but the machine learning side of, particularly from a marketing perspective, there are so many things that we're constantly doing to improve the way that we deliver marketing for our clients and for the customer. And if we can continue to use machine learning, which we are doing now, to say, hey, Kevin opens his emails at XYZ time. These are the 3 things that he's done this week on using his cookie information to be able to then come back and say, hey, this is how we should deliver it to him. This is the messaging he wants to hear. This is when he opens it. And we know how many times he clicks and interacts with each different bit, and continuing to improve that on an individual level when we're sending EDMs at mass. That's really starting to deliver.
Smart.
It's really smart, and it really delivers value to all of us. It means we send less, people receive less, but more informative and engage and interact more. And that value is really important from a marketing perspective for our clients.
Yeah, I think that marketing and data and segmentation is going to be really interesting because you're going to see there's two models, right? And James touched before on the sort of the in-house model where your data's sort of closed to a certain extent, and that has some real advantages, especially from a data security perspective. Or the open model where you're part of an ecosystem and you're plugging in different tools, and that has pros and cons as well. We rolled out a little while ago a ticket holder comms functionality, which is integrated with your ticketing, automated EDMs and personalized EDMs and segmentation and tagging and all that sort of thing. And at the time, I remember thinking, this is kind of technical. Are people going to want to tag this data and export it into other systems and things like that? And the answer is yes. I mean, people just seem to love it. And, we're sending millions and millions of those automated emails and segmented emails now. So, I think we're just going to see more of that going forward.
Yeah,
Excellent.
and then I think, to carry on just on the data front, I think from our perspective, it's also then taking all that data and plugging it into our, tools that we're creating to support artists and promoters on a pricing front, and understanding how can we better price our house, how can we start looking at pricing down to the seat level dynamically. We spoke earlier about early bird pricing, but quite often we see that when tickets undervalued at the on sale, they're ending up on the secondary market at a much higher price. So how can we help support all of that data to help you make better decisions?
Yeah. All right, that's about our time. Thank you very much. That was awesome, and we'll get on and do the business.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kevin.
Thank you.